Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1029A, and today's date is July 22nd, 2016, and the title of the episode is Cash is Flowing Out of Europe and into the BRICS Emerging Markets. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, today we can see the market was kind of flat today. Yesterday we had gold rising. Today it was suppressed a little bit. And we can see that gold is holding its own. It's staying above $1,300. We see the market is pretty much staying flat for the time being. And we can see right now that the world is preparing for this major collapse. Now, we all understand, because we've been following the economic indicators for quite a while. We understand that retail is contracting, GDP is manipulated. We have no more manufacturing in the United States. We see that housing, the bubbles are now popping. And we can see at this point, the United States government, the central bankers, they are trying whatever they possibly can do to convince the world that this economy is doing very well, that there's no problems. And when we look throughout Europe, when we look at the United States, we can see that each one of the economies is trending downwards. If we look at the UK right now, we're getting word, and this is coming from market, that the UK is heading for a recession, because we're seeing that GDP is contracting by 0.4%. It has in the third quarter. Manufacturing PMI, that has tumbled from 52.1 to 49.1. The service PMI has plunged from 52.3 to 47.4. And this is the lowest print in 88 months. But what we can see, of course, they're saying that this is all from the Brexit. But what we can see when we look at the graph and we look at the information, it has always been on a downward trend. Nothing new here. But of course, the central bankers, the U.S. government, the corporate media, they all have the excuse now, which is called the Brexit. Here in the United States, we're seeing the same exact thing. There's really no difference. But of course, what we have is the United States government central bankers manipulating the stock market, manipulating and suppressing gold, manipulating a lot of the statistics to convince the population that everything is fine. But we see more and more layoffs that are continuing. Energy giant Schlumberger, they're firing another 8,000 people because market conditions have worsened in the second quarter. And as time goes on, everything continually gets worse. Now, when we look at the Millennials, this might be the first generation that will have a lower lifetime earnings than any other generation. And we have to remember something very important. And I was speaking to an older gentleman. I mean, I'm 50 right now, and I was talking to someone who is close to 80 at this point. And he holds seminars. And it's very interesting because I didn't realize that he did this. He holds seminars where he talks about the economic collapse. And he was telling the people, you know, what you need to do. You need to buy gold. You need to buy silver. You need to get prepared. Most of the people have a very difficult time hearing this, he says. And I agree with him because many people, they shut down. They don't want to hear about any of this. But we agreed on many of the points where, yes, the economy is coming down. It is getting worse. And he's saying that today, the generation that is out there right now is having a much tougher time. And he says every single time, and he's been in the financial industry for over 50 years, every single time throughout history, he says the fiat system, in the beginning, everyone feels incredibly well. Everyone feels that the entire system is working for them. Because, as we know, since 1971, when we came off the gold standard, all of a sudden, wages doubled, housing prices inflated, people felt good, everything was going perfectly. Then you moved into the 80s where they took the interest rates back down. You have that middle period of growth. And then he says, as we get to the end game, there are certain areas that you can see how things start to form. Because in the beginning, you have inflation and your wages inflate with it. So if you bought a house for $20,000 back in 1970, all of a sudden it inflated to $90,000 very quickly, and your salary did the same. When the system comes down and we're at the end game period, wages are flat or decline, which we're seeing now. Inflation continually moves up, which we are seeing now. They're holding it at bay by lowering the fuel costs, so this way producers don't have to continually raise their prices. This is one way they're fighting it. The other way they're fighting it is they're not letting the currency that they're creating enter the system to circulate more currency, because more currency that's in the system devalues the currency. So they have that part manipulated and controlled. But eventually what's going to happen as the system dies is that wages will continually decline and inflation will take effect, as we're seeing in Venezuela, as we've seen in Greece, as we've seen in many countries. And the millennials right now, they are stuck with so much student loan debt, with no prospects of getting good jobs, that it's going to be a nightmare for the next generation. And if you look right now, the millennials, they have more student loan debt than any generation before them. This is a complete nightmare, and this is coming from the Pew Research Center, because millennials have 41% debt in education. Generation X, 26%, baby boomers, 13%, the silent generation, 3%. And as we move forward, this is just going to get worse. And as we know, and we discussed it before, Amazon is entering into the market of the student loan business. And of course, we know why they're doing this, because they're getting ready to blow up the bubble. And one of the areas that he said is a good place to escape to is Singapore. And I said there's another place I like is New Zealand. And we had a very lengthy discussion, and he was telling me that he believes that the economy most likely will come down in this fall. I said it's a good possibility. And he says if it doesn't come down in the fall, it will be the first quarter of 2017, which I found very interesting because this coincides with what a lot of people are saying right now. And what's very interesting about all of this is that people around the world, they're starting to wake up a little bit, because they're starting to realize things don't make sense. They can't put their finger on it, but they're realizing that something is wrong. And out in Europe, we see that investors, they understand there's major problems, because we see that they are taking their cash, taking it out of the European investments, and shoving it into the emerging markets. So they realize they need to place their funds someplace else. Actually, he told me he went over to Singapore, opened up a bank account, and he said it's very tough to open up a bank account in Singapore because you need a letter of recommendation before you can even open up an account in Singapore. And he says they are very strict with holding your funds. It's very secure out in Singapore. And what we're seeing right now is that many people are taking their funds, their gold, their silver, whatever they have, and moving it outside of the United States, moving it outside of Europe. Now, what we're seeing is that people are fleeing. People are realizing that things are going to accelerate. We're already seeing it. We see that around the world, we're at 0% interest rates. Many places are in negative. We know the United States will be heading into that negative region. And something very interesting came up from JP Morgan's former permabull, Tom Lee. And he said something where it should scare everyone. at this point. And I'm not in the business, of scaring you. I just like to have you informed. I want you to be prepared. I don't want you to be, surprised when everything falls apart. And he said, for whatever reason, we are scared about the month of August. 4 of the 6 most recent Augusts have been big down months. And this August doesn't look any better, and we're very nervous. And what we're seeing here is that people realize that the market is completely manipulated, that the economy is completely manipulated, that when this economy comes down and crashes, it's going to happen in a split second. It's funny, the person I was speaking to, from his years of experience, he said this will happen very, very quickly. And I agree with him. I don't think this is going to be a long, drawn-out period. I think when they are prepared and ready to bring the system down, it will be a snap of the finger. Because what we see in 1929, boom, it just happened. What we saw in 2001, boom, it just happened. What we saw in 2008, boom, it just happened. We are on the same course. The only difference right now is that things are much worse. The people are not driving the economy. The people are not driving the stock market. This whole thing was created by the central bank. The bubbles were created by the central bank. And when this comes down, we've already had the instance of everyone losing their wealth during 2008. Many people, the majority of the country, has never recovered from that. Yes, they're getting by, but they've never recovered. Take that and have another horrific collapse of the system. Those people who have jobs, they will feel it. Those people who are just getting by are going to really feel it. And this is why, from the beginning, I've been telling everyone to get prepared. You need to get prepared for what is coming. When this happens, and you're watching it happen, it will be too late. You will not be able to go get food. You will not be able to get water. You will not be able to get gold or silver. You will not be able to get your cash out. You will not be able to get a weapon to protect your family. This is a fact. Think back to 2008 when everything was falling apart. Multiply that by 100 this time. How do you think things are going to turn out? It's going to be horrific. And if you are purchasing food, continually go to Costco, go to Sam's Club, go to the supermarket, get whatever you can possibly get right now. Look at Venezuela. You can go shopping in the morning if there's any supplies. Later on in the day, your money is worth less. Most likely, there has been no deliveries. So those people are stuck. This is why the borders were open in Colombia. 35,000 people went over there to try to get some food, supplies, and everything else. If you're going to lifereliance.com, order what you need. Emergency food, get your water filtration system, get seeds. Whatever you possibly can do at this time, do it. Because we're getting to that point, as we can see around the world, everything is accelerating at this time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.